محمد وعجل وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. As you know, tonight we have two special occurrences. One is the waladat of Sayyidah Zeinab, which is actually tonight and tomorrow. And the other is the majlis that we're having for our dear brother Muhammad Azmo. These two can be related with one another because when we ever have difficulties as followers and lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we always look up to Sayyidah Zainab for patience and resilience and what befell her on the day of Karbala and what happened afterwards. I was at a few youth groups last night and I would ask in a poll, what characteristic for the youth is most important for you from the life of Sayyidah Zainab? One group, which is about 40 people, said strength. One group said courage. The courage of Lady Zainab is the attribute that I remember the most, that it impacts me the most. The second said the strength of Lady Zainab. So tonight we asked this holy lady, immaculate lady, to have forgiveness, ask Allah to have forgiveness on this dear marhum. And for her and to give patience and calm to the family of this marhum, inshallah. And for us to learn from Sayyidah Zainab how to be a patient one, how to have sabr jameel, a beautiful type of patience. When you look at dealing with loss, and it is a life skill to have, because there are a few things that make a person weak, knock a person down. Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions three things that causes a person to lose their strength. ثلاث يحددن القوى. One, فقد الأحبة. The first thing that knocks a person down is losing someone that they love. The second is والفقر في الغربة. Poverty in a strange land, not getting help from anyone. والدوام الشدة, always being in calamity. So how can one deal with such a great loss? How can we as a community give ourselves strength when we lose loved ones? There are stages of grief. The first stage of grief is that a person is in shock and disbelief. Usually when the news comes in, a person is in shock. I can't believe it. What happened? They're in disbelief. I don't believe it. Are you sure? And they come and verify. So the first stage in grief is shock. The second is preoccupation with the memory, that person is always consistently remembering who that person was. And the third is resolution. Then at the end they want to decide, now what can I do? So tonight we'll talk about a few steps that will deal with us, and this is a life skill, is how to deal with losing a loved one. When we look at the first step, one is that we need to have a logical analysis of life. We need to have a logical analysis of what death means to us. Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions that not all days are for us. There are days that are for us, and there are days that are against us. And if you look at all of our lives, you don't see one person that always has negative. There is some good in their life. There also is some bad. But the importance that Imam Ali alayhi salam has in Tuhf al-Uqul narrated from him, when he says, يَوْمٌ فَيَوْمٌ لَكْ وَيَوْمٌ عَلَيْكَ, there are 2 days, a day that is for you and a day that is against you. فَإِذَا كَانَ لَكَ فَلَا تَبْتَرْ, and if the day is good for you and you're having a good time in life, then don't rebel. Use that energy that you have, use that wealth that you have, that capital that you have, use it in the right way. Don't rebel against God when your days are good. وَإِذَا كَانَ عَلَيْكَ فَلَا تَحْسَنْ Imam Ali alayhi salam says. But when your days are against you, and he says this tradition, we understand that everyone will have a day that is for them and a day that is against them. Don't be sad. فَبِكَلَيْهِمَا سَتُخْتَبَرْ. Because for both of these 2 days, the day that is for you and the day that is against you, you will be tested. You will be tested. And when we see that one day is for us and we're living our lives very easily, you know that you are being tested. And know also that when that day is against you, it is very hard and difficult. Also, Allah is testing you to see if you have patience. So therefore, we want to understand, how can we become strong? What can we do? My first recommendation is to look at life how it is. Life is a bridge. Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions that life is not in a way that you build. This is a bridge. You pass a bridge. You do not build a bridge. You pass it. When you look as a monotheist, as a believer, you see that everyone passes away in this world. There's not one being that will live forever. Eventually, everyone, even the prophets, the imams, they all die. So some have a longer life, some have a shorter life. But what is important is what we do while we're in this world. The second thing that I want to mention is that not only is this, life is transitory and that we have a real destination for ourselves, but it is important to know that everything that happens to us, those that have remained here, as we said, Imam Ali says, is a test. And it has that ability to make us muqarrab to God, to bring us close to God. Sometimes that ni'mah and blessing of Allah makes you closer to Him. Sometimes that hardship and difficulty opens up the door, and you realize who Allah is, and you could not realize it without any other way. One of the ways that Imam Hussein alayhi salam reaches his very high position that he has, and we understand that he has al-maqam al-mahmud, he has the praiseworthy station. From the traditions of the Prophet mentions there's only one way for Imam Hussein to reach that position, and that is through martyrdom and shahada. Through difficulty, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his rank is elevated. So therefore, if you change the way that you view life, change the way that you view bala and hardship, and you completely change it and have a tawheedi vision, as how Lady Zeinab alayhi salam did. When she says, all I saw was jameel, all I saw was beauty, meaning that she is changing all those difficulties, that hardship, into taqarrub and closeness to Allah. So we need to be able to, if you want to truly cope as mu'mineen and believers with difficulty, we need to change the way we view life. We need to change that niqmah that we think is bad for us and change it into ni'mah. Because that is what the great souls did. Great souls, like the soul of Lady Zeinab alayhi salam, there were of those that they would take huge occurrences, great occurrences that would drop anyone to their knees, and would take it and have sabr jameel. But weak people, or people that do not have that vision from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, do not have that tawheedi vision, they take the smallest of things and they lose it, they can't deal with it. So brothers and sisters and the family of dear Muhammad Azmoon, you have Lady Zeinab as your role model. And you see that the way she dealt with difficulty was with the way that she looked at life. She looked at life as a muwahhida, as tawheed, that we all belong to Allah. He has a plan for us. He gives everyone a life, and then He takes them to Himself, and He treats them with mercy, inshallah. One of our great scholars, they call him Allama, Fayzul Islam. And this Allama was actually, I don't know, anybody here, maybe you can mention this. He translated the Quran from Arabic to Farsi. Maybe you've read the translation of Fayzul Islam. Has anybody here heard of the translation from Arabic to Farsi of Fayzul Islam? You did? Okay, alhamdulillah. After I've been saying this a few times, one person, alhamdulillah, knows that at least I'm not making it up. This is true. Fayzul Islam went to Karbala. He was sick. He was a sheikh. He translated Quran. Very difficult to translate. Translated Nahjul Balagha. Very hard to translate. Translated Sahifa Sajjadiyah. Very hard to translate. All in Farsi. He's a scholar. And he was sick. A scholar, he goes to Karbala. And he goes to the shrine of Imam Hussein. And we know that all the dua under the qubba of Imam Hussein is answered. But he goes to the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and asks for his cure. And he doesn't get the cure from Karbala. So he goes to Najaf then. Goes to Imam Ali alayhi salam. And in Najaf he doesn't get the cure from Imam Ali's shrine. So they ask him to be able to go. He goes to a scholar and he asks this scholar, if we can recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I appreciate it. And he asked the scholar, what can I do? And he says to him, 3 times say salam, 3 times do tawassul to Lady Zeinab. Someone that went to Karbala, someone that went to Najaf, he's there. 3 times mention Sayyidah Zainab. And how do I know this story? I'll say. So after 3 times, he sincerely says salams or does tawassul by the power of Allah to Sayyidah Zainab. There, he does a vow and makes a nadhr and says, Sayyidah Zainab, if I get well, I'll write a book for you. He was an author. He could write. He says, if I get good, I'll write a book for you. He says, immediately, in no time, I recovered. No time I got shafa. And then my family members came to me a little bit later and says, Dad, didn't you have this nadhr? Dad, didn't you have this vow? He says, okay, I did. So he began to write this book about Hazrat Zainab alayhi salam. And he writes this story in the muqaddamah of his book. He says, the reason why I'm writing this book is because I made a nazr, a vow to Sayyidah Zainab, if I get healed, I'll write a book for her. And he wrote it in there. So you see from this the power that this lady has. And I think that many of you have this affinity to Sayyidah Zainab, that you love and you yearn for her ziyarat. Any time you hear about the musibah, that what she went through and the patience that she had and the monotheistic outlook, that when she mentions and looks at the bodies of the shuhada, of the companions of her brother Imam Hussein, mentioning, Allahumma taqabbal minna hadha al-qurban. Allah, accept from us this qurban. Who does that? Who says that? Except someone that is a monotheist, a muwahhida, whose vision in life and horizons is much different than normal people. So therefore we tonight beseech Sayyidah Zainab and we ask her to help us, in this calamity that has happened, and to help our dear, family members of this marhum. When you look at her life, when she was born, the Prophet comes, and it's mentioned in the books, comes and kisses her and says, I advise the present and the absent of my ummah to honor and respect this girl. The Prophet, when she was born, told everyone who's there and whoever is not there to respect her. And I ask you, I know there's waladat as well, but I ask you, did they respect Sayyidah Zainab? What did she do after her brother Imam Hussein and Hazrat Abbas were murdered? Did they respect her? It mentions in this narration, in this saying, that she looks like Khadija. One of the physical attributes of Sayyidah Zainab is she looked like Khadija. One of our greats, Allama Imam Ghani, great scholar of Rajal, talks about Sayyidah Zainab. And we said we need to incorporate her more in order to deal with affliction. He says, أقول زينب وما زينب وما أدراك ما زينب. This is what he says about when it comes to her life. He says Zainab, and you will not understand who Zainab is. You cannot understand, or what is your understanding of Zainab. Mentions about her different وقد حازت من صفات الحميدة ما لم يحزها or يحزها بعد أمها أحد. She has unparalleled attributes that nobody had these attributes like Sayyidah Zainab except her mother Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. حتى حق أن يقال هي الصديقة الصغرى. It is the truth that you could say she is the second Fatima, she is the small Fatima to Zahra. هي في الحجاب والعفاف فريدة. She is in hijab and chastity and covering herself. She is unique and unparalleled, this lady. لم يرى شخصها أحد من الرجال في زمان أبيها وأخويها إلى يوم الطف. And nobody saw her. Says شخصها. Nobody even saw her, who she was. She was so covered. Nobody saw her during the lifetime of her father, Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the lifetime of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein and Hazrat Abbas. Nobody saw her until the day of Taf, where they removed the hijab. But our scholars say when they removed hijab of Sayyidah Zainab, they had layers of hijab. They said, the outer layer of her hijab. وهي في الحجاب والعفاف فريدة وهي في الصبر والثبات وقوة الإيمان والتقوى وحيدة. And she is in patience and resilience and strength of faith and piety. She's unique. Nobody is like her. You know, when it comes to her piety, she had such a high position that is recorded that Imam Hussein alayhi salam would talk to her and mention her and says, do not forget me in your night prayers. Imam Hussein, the infallible Imam, would come to Sayyidah Zainab, say, do not forget me in your night prayers. And some say during the entire journey of Karbala to Sham, she still prayed the night journey. But some nights she had to pray sitting because she could not stand up anymore. She had to pray sitting. Al-Nabi Imam Ghani continues about this lady, holy and immaculate lady. وَفِي الْفَصَاحَةِ وَالْبَلَاغِ كَأَنَّهَا تَفْرَغُ عَنْ لِسَانِ أَمِيرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. And when it comes to speech and eloquence, as if she is a part of the tongue of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And people were surprised when she began to speak. They thought, is this Ali ibn Abi Talib speaking in Kufa again? When she began to speak, and all the animals miraculously began to be quiet. وَلَوْ قُلْنَا بِعِسْمَتِهَا لَمْ يَكُنْ لِأَحَدٍ أَنْ يُنْكَرْ إِنْ كَانَ عَارِفًا بِأَحْوَالِهَا مِنَ الطَّفْ. And if I, Al-Nabi Imam Ghani, were to say that she is ma'soom and she is infallible, nobody can challenge me. After you see what she did in Karbala, after Karbala. وكيف ولو لا ذلك لما حملها الحسين عليه السلام مقدار من ثقل الإمامية أن الإمامة أيام مرض السجاد عليه السلام. How can this not be? Because Imam Sajjad was sick and some of the duty of imamat was on her shoulders, Al-Nabi Imam Ghani says. So when we look at the life of this holy lady and this immaculate lady, we see that Sayyidah Zainab was strong for a few reasons. One was her Tawheedi vision that she had, because she worshipped Allah so much and she saw reality how it really is. And if we ask Allah to give us and allow us to see reality how it really is from Sayyidah Zainab and Ahlul Bayt, and the closer you get to Tawheed, the more you'll get in tragedy will become easier for you. But the more you have attachments to this world, the more you will be susceptible to be harmed. But when you don't have any ta'alluqat and any attachments, you can be in the palace of Yazid, the most powerful person possibly in the world at that time, with generals and advisors and people from all over the world. Sometimes when it comes to our boss, when it comes to different people, our legs shake just talking in front of them. But she, as a captive, was speaking to the most powerful of people. There, she was not an asir, she was not a captive. She was an amir, she was a commander, because she didn't have any attachments to the world. What could Yazid do to her? She had no attachments. Therefore, she was fearless, and she gave, because the night is running long, then the speech is running long, we're going to cut it short. She gave such a speech that Yazid was forced to send her back and started blaming Ibn Ziyad and say, I didn't kill Imam Hussein, Ibn Ziyad killed Imam Hussein, and was forced to send her back in the caravan back to Medina because a rebellion would occur in the city of Sham. So therefore we ask Allah, inshallah, to give us the patience of Sayyidah Zeinab, inshallah. We ask Allah to have mercy on our dear brother Muhammad Azmoon, and to give, inshallah, patience to his family. And I advise us during these difficult times that this is a life skill, how to deal with death, how to deal with challenges. So two things. One is that you look and you completely change the vision that you have of this world and make it tawheedi. The second is you connect to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and use them as role models to see what they did. How did they do it? How did they overcome such difficulties? And it is possible to make something that is very, a tragedy, for us to make it, inshallah, something that it is able to tolerate, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ahli bayti at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad